Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon.
In the house, no less.
Live and in person.
I'm right here.
Jared is right there, sitting across from us, where he should be when he's here. Hey, everybody, this is me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We're thrilled to death that you are listening to our show.
That's right. Welcome.
Yes, yes, yes. And that crazy person clapping in the background is our special guest. Who are you, special guest?
Hi, from Atlanta, Georgia. This is Kenny Howes. How are you?
Doing very well. I know you weren't asking me. You were asking the audience, but I felt like responding. It was such a nice thing.
I was going to get a response back quicker from you than I would from the audience.
Yeah, very delayed.
It's crickets out there.
Yeah.
It's a rough room.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special show tonight, and I want to share something that's going to set this up.
Set it up, Todd.
Well, this is what happened. We got a very special message from Justin Valerio. Ooh. Just wanted to reach out and say that I've been loving the podcast. Thank you so much. I work for one of the major guitar builders as QC. That's quality control. So I've managed to get through the back catalog of episodes through my days. The 101s specifically have been insightful. Thanks for all the work you guys put into this. Well, Justin, let me tell you, we got a very special 101 because this is Rickenbacker.
You said it right.
101. I had to double check. Rickenbacker 101. Oh, I know. Everybody's like gripping the steering wheel and going, yes, finally. You know, we've heard Tony talk about the Ricks for years now, and decades, if not that. And our special guest, who so delightfully just introduced himself, is what is your role in this, Kenny?
Well, I have been playing almost exclusively Rickenbackers since the 1980s. I am a big fan, obviously, and I was employed by the company for 7 years in a variety of roles. Was not quality control, but I was director of sales, a little bit of R&D, artist relations, all kinds of stuff, and I still play them and collect them to this day.
So you know a thing or two about the Ricks.
I do.
Right.
And I have a quote in Martin Kelly's new book, the Rickenbacker book that's coming out next month, I think.
Ooh,
I didn't know that one was coming out.
We'll have to maybe get him on.
He's in England, so you have a time difference thing. But yes, he would probably be
I'm sure
delighted.
he can row himself here by then.
I'm going to get this wrong, but the title of the book, or the byline of the title of the book, is something to I don't know if you're familiar with him. He wrote an amazing coffee table book about Fender guitars a few years ago, and this is sort of the Rickenbacker companion piece to that. But the byline of the book is called, and I'm going to get it wrong, something like "Out of the Frying Pan into the Fire Glow."
Ooh, I like
very
it.
clever. But I have seen a lot of sneak preview of a bunch of the photos of the book, and it's going to be tremendous. But I got a quote in it. Yay!
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we also share something in common, Kenny. We were both in the acknowledgments of Paul Boyer's The Rickenbacker Electric Bass book.
Wow.
I was acknowledged.
I was. I didn't. I don't know if I saw that. One of my basses is in there, actually.
Yeah, I know which one it is. I know a guy that made the pick guard for it.
So you're.
I was just playing that. I got a new bass amp last week, so I was just giving that one a test drive through it. So that's good.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, needless to say, we are going to learn from two longtime aficionados and, dare I say, experts on
aficionados
Rickenbackers. All right, I'll leave that in there.
And I'll be taking a back seat to this.
Yes, Jared and I are gonna learn, and have a good time.
Yes, we will.
Just like you out there, who are still listening.
That's right.
Both of you.
So we just have two quick announcements, and then we're gonna get into what's going on in our music world this week. Okay. Now, announcement number one, I just wanted to give a shout out to one of our executive producers, Jason Rausch, who is he does a lot of electronic stuff in his day job, and he sent us a box of goodies that he's been developing for those who are, I guess, interested in the breadboarding experience. He made essentially a couple of modules to help speed the process up and make things a little bit more efficient and stuff like that. So he's trying to figure out, like, hey, how can I apply my daily job into helping out the guitar community? So he mentioned, if we mentioned to you all, if you have any desire to contact him and just say, hey, that sounds pretty cool, you can get a hold of him on Instagram, Jason Roush, and I will, while I'm looking, while one of these clowns is talking, I will be sure to look that address up to give it to you. Okay,
That'd be really nice of you.
Yeah, and he's happy to connect with anybody and everybody because he really loves the guitar community and he's a great supporter of it. So thank you so much, Jason. And I also wanted to share a quick 4 on the floor. This is from John Sluhan, like ham. He said, I told myself if I ever mailed you all that I had to provide a 4 on the floor. These pedals were purchased back when I was like 16 to 18 years old. And so he wanted to share those with us. His 4 on the floor. Number 1, a Q-Tron envelope filter.
How old is this gentleman?
Well, I know. It says like 2004, 2006. So he's not that old.
Oh, okay.
Q-Tron is...
Did they do a reissues of this?
Yeah.
It's the 90s big box reissue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
It's Electro-Harmonics, isn't it?
I think,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
yeah, huge fan of 311, and they use it on the songs like Amber, Champagne, and Plain. Had me hooked. Number 2, a Boss OC2. This thing really beefs up single note runs and adds depth to everything. Number 3, the Vox V87 Wah. I don't know that I know that specific model too well. Mine is a 9-volt operated with, and the sag gives it a great lower, not so bright sweep of the wah and creates a great tone. All right.
Nice.
Glad you know your Vox 87 so well. Number 4, Boss CE2. This was a hand-me-down from my father, who plays acoustic singer-songwriter music from the 60s and 70s. After doing the research on this pedal, it will never leave my possession. So, thank you, John Sluhan, and we are very grateful for you sending that in. We love hearing that
always
stuff from
nice to
people.
hear what people cherish.
Yes. Cherish. We're going to find out what's going on in our music world this week because we got to get through some stuff to talk about a whole bunch of Rickenbacker stuff.
Brother.
That's right.
Tanya Bolonsky is going to lead us off.
This week?
And then we're going to check in with our pal Kenny, and then we'll make it around the horn.
This was a big week.
Oh, yeah.
Not only did I get to have lunch with my buddy Jared yesterday.
That weird place.
Thanks
I
for-
like it.
Thanks for telling me.
It's a nice place.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you only eat that vegetarian stuff.
True.
We go after beef.
They're not vegetarian there.
No.
So I finished and shipped, and he received it today, the Fender Maverick / custom guitar that I made for Carl Mullen, who used to be with a band out of Pittsburgh called Car Sickness. And he had one of these back in the 80s that he played.
Cool.
And he asked me to make him one because I contacted him, wanted to get some details of what his was like. So he just got it today. He plugged it in, was thrilled. And finally, I got my 1948 Gibson Super 300 back in shape.
Man. That thing stinks.
It's a
I mean, it
monster
literally
guitar.
smells.
It smells
really
funny,
bad.
but I tell you, I didn't want to give it back to Tony.
No.
I was like,
It's a delight to play.
I was like, how much do you want for it? He's like, not for sale.
Not for sale.
It is beautiful.
So
And it plays awesome.
It's a wonderful instrument, and the
is.
beauty of it, I put strings on it. I mean, there were some repairs that needed to be done, which were done, and I had to make a pick guard for it. But I put strings on it. I didn't even have to adjust the truss rod. It was like it never skipped a beat.
It's got
Is that
parallelograms.
a dressed down Super 400?
Yeah, and I didn't even know these existed until I saw this one. And basically, it was a less fancy Super 400. Basically, the construction's the same, scale, size, everything's the same.
Well, it's got binding. It's got
but
beautiful
the
pick guard.
Yeah, Super
it's got
4
parallelograms.
and the Super 4 has even more ornamentation and more figured wood, gold hardware. This had nickel hardware. And,
I'd take that all day, man. That's a great guitar.
Yeah.
It is because it's not overly done. It's like a beautiful player that can be around forever.
It's a 48. You should get your decal, Tony Baloney, and put it on the guitar. Like the old guys did.
I'll just scratch it in the
gold
finish.
No, the gold decals like
The gold decal.
Yeah.
Tony, I'll give you $850 for it.
for a gold decal.
That's $2 per number.
As tempting as that is, Kenny.
No, it plays great and it
really
sounds
warm
loud
sounding.
too.
It's
loud.
It's monstrously loud.
for an F-hole guitar.
Well, it's an
Warm.
18-inch wide on the
Yeah,
lower
it's a
bout.
big giant belly.
It's a big
It's
boy.
huge.
So I'm very excited about that, and I've been waiting for, we've had it. It was clamped up for over a month, and finally got it free of that.
Did a
and
fine job.
Very, very happy. So
Yeah.
very exciting week.
Yeah.
Very nice. Kenny, what's going on in your music world this week?
Oh, well, let's see. I was asked to do an actual gig. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not yet, but it's be a solo gig. My band is still on COVID break. But I guess the biggest music thing this week is I mentioned this before we hit record, but I got a new bass amp. I got it actually a couple months ago, but it's been boogered up, and I just got it out of the shop. It's a early 80s, 81, 82, Vox V125B. So that is a tube 125 watt head, 4 EL84s, and a matching 115 cabinet with a port on the bottom. And it sounds big and squishy like a good 100 watt bass amp should. And,
How do they get 125 watts out of 4 EL84s?
You got me. Oh, did I say 84? EL34.
Oh, 34s. Okay, there you go. That's better.
Yeah, my
Even
bad.
that's still pushing them really hot, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, and it's got a weird, like a 5-band EQ with rotary knobs, and but yeah, it just goes boom like it's supposed to, and so that's what I was talking about with trying it with the old 4005 bass and stuff. Wow. But yeah, it's great. So that's the most exciting thing I've had happen this week. Music wise, I haven't, and I'm just trying to get my home, I use the word studio with finger quotes because I'm not going to actually record in it. I just kind of a space to get writing again and stuff.
Nice.
Getting that in place. So yeah, that's about it.
Excellent.
Yes.
Brandon,
You mean Jared?
well, your last name's Brandon, isn't it? That
Yeah.
counts. Brandon, Jared.
That's Mr. Brandon to you.
Yeah.
Middle name's Alan.
Jab.
Couple of things. That's right. that is right. A couple of things. Work's going pretty well. I really enjoy that. Always look forward to Mondays during the weekend.
I never look forward to Mondays.
Really?
Never.
Not even doing what you're doing now?
Nah, I hate Mondays.
I love Mondays.
I hate it.
It's when all the stuff starts to flow again at work, and you just get into it, and it gets busy, and it's fun. But if there's nothing to do, you're just like,
He's doing the first thing. He's doing something new for the first time in a long time. You're doing the same thing you've done for ages.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
Well,
what about this lovely instrument that you
I
brought
brought
into
that
the
up last
studio?
week, but I did bring that Jimmy Page Telecaster.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's
Dragon Telly.
beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great. So I was under the impression it was made in USA. And
No.
I know it's not. I was there at the store, and I was like, hey, is this made in USA? And the salesman went back, and he came back. He's like, yep. I'm like, oh, wow, for this price? Yeah, I'll buy it. And I saw the MX stamped on the neck.
Maybe he thought you said, was this sold in the USA?
Well, I mean, I'm not even going to bother going back because those guys are just doing anything. They really want to sell a guitar.
No, it's a cool guitar. I mean, there's
It
no doubt
really
about
is,
it.
and to be honest with you, in my opinion, the quality is good. On this particular guitar, it's as good as USA make guitar.
Yeah, it's a good. Those are good models. Have they also done the Yardbirds one with the circles on it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Have
Yeah,
they?
the mirrors.
That's cool.
Yeah, the mirror circles. Yeah, they did that. That's a little more expensive. But
Well, that one.
They didn't do a really good job of hyping that one at NAMM. It was all about the dragon.
Yeah.
But the circles right next to it, and it was like, what? They really should have done a
fixing
better
your hair
story
in it
about
and all
going,
that.
this used to be this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
because the
Zeppelin-
circle one that was Sid Barrett's guitar,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
well, maybe Fender didn't have enough money to throw at marketing at that.
You're right.
Yeah. Well, Zeppelin sold a lot more records than the Yardbirds and
hell yeah.
Piper at the Gates of Dawn put together. So you know, that's probably they're putting their money where the mouth is, where the mouth of the
Indeed.
money is, or something.
And it's nice to come home and go down to the shop and see what Zach's up to, and he's doing a good job so far. I got one of my Reverend guitars out and was playing that and put that through my 73 Marshall JMC
Nice.
or JMP rather, and
PC,
was really
whatever
loud.
it takes.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, just real quick, what is the P and the C? What's the difference for those that don't know out there?
I don't know.
I think it had to do with the license plate on Jim Marshall's car. I'm serious.
Really?
Yes.
Well,
Wow.
Tony would know, so I'm going with him on that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. You had your
I think-
picture
I
with
think
Jim,
I-
didn't you?
I have several pictures.
I think I know what your next fan mail is going to be. It's it's going to be a response
the
to
truth
that.
about all that. yeah.
Well, and look, we don't know everything, everybody. Certainly I don't. Tony usually knows just about everything, but sometimes we don't know, and we're guessing at it.
We want fan reaction. We
Yeah,
want
what is
we want
that?
people to tell us if
Tell
we're
us
wrong.
what you think that is.
I'll
please.
put $1 on it had to do with his license plate on his car.
I want to
Okay.
know what's going on in your world, Todd.
Well, I got to spend some good old fun time down with Chase Gullett at his guitar shop. I actually brought Vinny, my new custom one that he did for me down because he's wanted to shoot some pictures of it and stuff, and he happened to be hosting an amp builder there, who he's working on doing something. So or was checking out some amps, and it was just really fun because I got to put Vinny through like a handful of different amp models, and we were blasting it, and it just sounded really good. And it's nice to be in that environment, just sitting in a guitar shop that's stuff's being made. There's half built guitars all over the place, and it was just really fun. All kinds of all that stuff.
I remember he was down for Summer NAMM, and he showed me what the space was currently and what he's going to do. And I'm not sure if he did it yet. But
Oh yeah, it's all did.
Well, really, he showed me the layout and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
he was so jazzed up about it.
He's
it's good to hear.
He's a dreamer who puts his dreams into action, which I think is pretty special. Anyways, we need to check something out real quick.
So I was down in my basement and I got a few pedals out and threw them on a board.
So you literally threw them?
Safely set them on a board, powered them up, and I had to hook them all together.
I think I know what you might have used for
I
that.
did. I bought so many tour gear
Designs.
cables, tour gear design cables in the past that I had extra ones still at home,
Nice.
and I could use them and hook them up any way I wanted because
Did they still work?
they work perfectly because they're durable.
Yes.
They're under $6 a piece,
Yeah.
and there's
on average.
on average,
smaller
on
ones.
average, yeah.
Yeah.
But you can get all sorts of lengths and
And the cable is flat, is it not?
it's very flat like a crepe.
Flat as a crepe.
And it's
Trademark
got a
Tony
small
Dudzik.
profile, so I mean you don't have any issue with the pedals with the jacks in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
they fit closely together.
Fit.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I think you could safely say that with using Tour Gear Design patch cables, you could fit at least 2 more, possibly
Oh, for
3
sure.
or 4 more
Without question.
pedals
Jacks.
on your board.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, very helpful. Check out tourgeardesigns.com, and you're going to get a 10% off discount if you enter the guitar knobs, okay? in the coupon code.
Yeah, guitar knobs.
That's right. Or you can go to tourguitardesigns.com/discount/the guitar knobs, and you'll land there automatically. We're so thrilled with their product, and we're even more thrilled that they sponsor our 4 on the floor. Jared,
Let me get a little bit of this.
1, 2, 3.
4 on the floor.
Kenny Howes, what is your 4 on the floor?
So my go-to pedal for everything is a 70s MXR micro amp. And it's an early version with no light on it. And you know why? The battery lasts longer.
There you go.
I use it turned up all the way, so I know when it's on. And just use it for leads and then kick it off, and then I'm back to where I was.
Are you exclusively a bass player?
No, I'm a guitar player mostly.
Okay. Are
So
you
this is-
exclusively a guitar player? That's what I meant to ask.
Yeah, by bass player, he meant guitar
Well,
player.
he threw out a lot of bass stuff early at us.
Yeah,
you know,
no, I'm primarily in my own band. I play guitar.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm also an organ player, but we'll come back to that. So that's MXR micro amp. Second is as dumb as it sounds, as a Boss TU2. Because you got to understand, I don't have a pedal board with a power supply and all that stuff. I have battery powered pedals on the floor.
People forget about that.
Oh, that's right. And my third one is not an actual pedal that you turn on and off, but one could consider it an effect, and that is the late great Thd Hot Plate. I use Vox AC30 amps that don't have master volumes, and so the Thd Hot Plate was a lifesaver for not killing everyone in the front row with an AC30.
Is that an attenuator?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a power soak that hooks between the amp and the speakers, and it's on all the time when you use it. But they don't require AC power; it just goes off the power of the amp, and a little light goes as you play it. So it goes ding, 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 and people say, "What is that thing sitting on your amp?" And then my fourth pedal, which I don't get to use very often, but when I do, it's there. Is again vintage. It's an Ibanez Ue405. Which is a rack mount with 4 effects in it and all analog with a big foot switch that turns them on and off. It's got compressor, parametric EQ, chorus, and analog delay. So I've been through a couple of these. I got one in high school when they were $100, and but I love them so much that I've got a couple more now. And like I said, that's those 4 sounds. It's about all I need. I don't even use reverb. But yeah, that's my 4 on the floor.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing.
Of course, thank you.
Very good. Very good. All right. Now, what you all have been waiting for, and certainly Jared and I have been waiting for, we are going to 101 the heck out of Rickenbacker guitar. And actually, one of the first questions I was going to have was, is it Rickenbacker or Rickenbacker? And
It's
I think
back.
we answered that right away.
Unless you're in Germany.
Yeah.
No, well, yeah. The thing is, it's not German. It's a Swiss name.
Oh.
Which I know is, to some people is splitting hairs, but it's true. Adolf Rickenbacher, like his cousin Eddie Rickenbacker, the famous World War I flying ace.
From Columbus, Ohio area.
Yeah, you've got a Rickenbacker airport there, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Like his cousin Eddie, he immigrated to the States in the either the 20s or the 30s. I'm going to get my information off. But the one thing that is true is that there was already anti-Nazi sentiment going on, and he didn't want to be thought of as German, so he anglicized his name to Rickenbacker.
Yes, because
And,
originally was CH, right? And then they
That's
changed
correct.
It to CK.
And that's right. And if you don't believe me, you can call the company in Santa Ana and hear the voice on the phone say, "Thank you for calling Rickenbacker." And you can also look on the website where they actually have a thing that says, "How do you pronounce the name of the company?"
Very clever.
Yes, indeed. And it's a common thing to say Bacher. I think a lot of rock stars I've met say that. A lot. Some of them it the right way. As you know, John Hall, the owner of the company, once said, "It doesn't matter how you say it as long as you spell it right on the check."
Well done, well done. One of the things that I often wonder about this guitar, and from here on out, we'll just reference it as the Rick. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Just it's an hour-long show, folks.
Let's call it the Acker.
Yeah, no, terrible. What hole do you think? Careful. In the guitar market, did and or does the Rick fill?
That's an interesting question, Tony. You sound like you were about I could hear you
No,
breathing there.
he's just trying to get that pork chop back up.
I don't know that they were looking to fill a specific hole. I think they made a guitar. I mean, of course, they started off as kind of a lap steel company. Invented, I guess technically
30s?
the first
20s, 30s.
Well,
1931.
31 was the frying pan.
Yes, they invented again, as John has been known to say, with some qualification, they invented the electric guitar, and that is that George Beecham invented the pickup, and it was first put on the frying pan. The first frying pan guitar, which is made out of wood, is made of maple. All the production models are made out of metal. Adolf Rickenbacker's background is in metalworking, I believe, and so that's what they did with it. So, but yeah, Tony's right. That's what they did for the better part of the first 15 years of the company.
Yeah, and then you leap into the probably late 50s, I guess, is when they really started going, into electric Spanish guitars. And I think they just developed kind of, between the pickups that they used and the construction methods and things, that became the Rickenbacker sound. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's true, Kenny?
Oh, absolutely. And they really took a corner, or turned a corner after Adolf sold the company to Francis Hall in the 50s, and I'm going to get the year wrong, but I want to say mid 50s, and it's really what we know of the classic Rick shapes is the handiwork of Roger Rosmeisel, who a lot of people know because of his Rick designs. And when he left Rick, he went to Fender and made some designs that were less popular. But I think that Martin Kelly's new book is going to talk quite a bit about the Mr. Rosmeisel and his contributions, but yeah, all the classic shapes that we all know of Rick were his designs, and before Roger's designs really took hold, all the classic 300 series shapes and the 4000 series basses and stuff, they were really trying to find their way. They have all those tulip shaped guitars with the horns pointing outwards, and a bunch of funky stuff. They're using horseshoe pickups on guitars, which was fine if you're playing a pedal steel, but not or a lap steel, but a little awkward. And you can't remove it because it's part of the structure of the pickup. So it's and like I said, I'm going a Cliff Notes version here because somebody like Martin's research and Richard Smith before him and Tony Bacon and so on, they go into the finer points, but yeah. So the shapes that we all know came around in the late 50s because of that. And but they were kind of just another Southern California guitar company, and you had and again I'm going to get my history wrong, but you had Fender going on, you had Mose, right? You had Rick, you had other stuff happening on the West Coast, and we all know what happened is the Ed Sullivan Show in February of '64, which helped quite a bit.
We'll get to that in a second.
You think that had anything to do with the success of the company?
Kind of big.
Probably, I'd say.
What do you think really draws people to the Rick?
Today, what I think draws them to it is, the quick answer, which is not complete, is nostalgia or a retro-y vibe. And it's but really they're just fabulous instruments across the board. They're more versatile than I think people think that you have to have a fill in the blank this for that sound. But that's like saying Mike Stern can't use a Telecaster to play jazz. And it's, and so, but yeah, I mean, Billy Joe Armstrong uses a Rick. So you can't say you can't say that it's not good for heavy rock. I think some of the Rick's later period solid body instruments would be great for that. And also, the obvious example of first Chris Squire and then Lemmy of what you can do with the Rick bass as far as just overdriving it and getting such a fierce, thunderous sound. The bass is just a whole nother topic. And
yes, we're going to hit that.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, I mean that shape of basically we call it the 330. The that to me was like the
and we're going to get into the numbers too.
Yeah, the coolest guitar that I ever saw, and I think the first time I saw one was George Harrison playing the 12-string, which was a 360, but it had the sharper pointed horns. Before they rounded things off. And to me, that was just like, oh my God, that looks really cool. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my Gibsons and Fenders and things, but when it comes to Rickenbackers, I just see one and I start to drool.
Yeah.
It's like Pavlov's dog.
Very cool, very cool. Now people seem to, this is my impression. I think that people seem to love them or. Hate is a strong word. I think basically just
misunderstand,
not like them for whatever reason. Do you think that is the case?
I agree. I agree with that.
I think they can be, for a lot of people, difficult to play. I mean, even though the action is super low, they tend to be more useful, I think, if you have smaller hands. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I've got big meat hooks and I play just fine. So I mean, I think it's perfectly fine.
I'm 6'2". And I love the standard nut width on a Rick, which is small. You can do tricks. You can play an A chord with one finger.
Yes.
You can do all kinds of crazy.
Your middle
stuff.
finger. That's the one to play
with. Interesting. Now, because I for the longest time I just am like, bleh, I didn't like them. I have grown to appreciate them. Yeah. I don't own one. I think I probably will at some point in time, maybe sooner than later.
I'll put you in my will. How's
hey,
that
thanks.
sound?
I knew you would. That's all I had to say. What do you think are the, speaking of the why people, love them or hate them, as two guys who do love them, what are the downsides of a Rick?
I don't know that there is a downside. I mean, the construction is incredibly good. I don't think I've ever, unless somebody purposely, Pete Townsend one, I don't think I've ever seen a headstock break. Have you, Kenny?
I have not, but it was direct abuse or neglect of something. Whoops, it fell over. It was not, but I've never seen one that it just kind of happened.
Yeah, I mean. I think that,
they look like fragile guitars, though.
Well, there is a thing. I mean, Pete Townsend went on record saying that, and that's part of why he was able to break the early ones so easily, because there is a difference in build. I won't say build quality, but there's a difference in construction between, say, I have a 330 from 1967, and then I have a couple from the late 80s. And the ones from the late 80s do feel more substantial. They made lots of changes. I think, I don't know this to be a fact, but it's nothing to prove me wrong, that the reason they went to a 2-octave neck on the guitars and the neck extends into, the fingerboard extends into the body a half an inch or a quarter inch, whatever it is to strengthen the neck joint, because old ones, they do feel a little bit like if you pushed it just enough that you could break the neck off with your bare hand. So the old ones do feel like it, but again, Pete Townsend, who's got more of a way with words than I do, said that they felt like violins. That they were like, there's still a thing of beauty, and you can still hit them hard, you can still strum them hard, you can still get, you can still play anyway, anyhow, anywhere on one, but that they are a little bit delicate. But that has definitely changed since then. Probably starting in the early to mid 70s, their guitars definitely have some more oomph.
Now, I gig a lot around, just like a normal, I guess, band. You could say it's not like, semi-national, it's not national or anything like that. But obviously, I love music. I've been to a lot of shows. I've been to a lot of gigs. For as much as people recognize and potentially love these guitars, I have very rarely ever seen one on stage in a non-professional hand. Why do you think that is?
I think that there's, I've been working music retail a long time, and I think that, and no offense to anyone out there who is of means, but I think that because they don't make instruments overseas and don't have, a fancy Jimmy Page model that's made in Mexico that is under $1,000, because they don't offer that sort of thing, that they wind up in the hands of collectors and folks who are strictly amateurs and don't play the local bars. And so that could be why. Once in a while you see someone that like myself, and I've done just as much sort of local band cover gigs as I have doing my own music and national touring and so on. But so I'm a bit of an exception, but yeah, you see him once in a while. You see a well-worn Rick, but yeah, there are people that buy them to hang on the wall.
And let's face it, there's just not as many of them out there as there are Gibsons and Fenders and all of the others. I mean,
I'm not even talking about
of production,
like vintage ones. I'm talking,
Yeah. I mean, and I guess in a lot of people's eyes, it's kind of a one-trick pony. But I mean, Ricks to me have a very unique sound, and I don't think it's easily replicated by any other guitar.
I agree with that.
Do you think that's due to the construction, or just the electronics, or both, or what?
Both.
Well, the electronics, once you get into the knobs and switches,
we're gonna.
Well, they're. I mean, all that stuff is fairly standard. Their pickups are definitely unique, especially what they call the toaster pickup, which is the chrome one with the two black lines going across the top. Looks like it's the top of a toaster. They're wound lightly, but there's also Fenders from the 50s that are wound to 5K resistance, and the Ricks at 7.5K is not that different from that. But yeah, they've got a sparkle that is hard to beat.
And they've always, predominantly have used maple and walnut, which are two very bright woods when you put them in a guitar. They're also kind of heavy, which is, on the semi-hollow versions like the big body 330s and such. That helps relieve some of the weight. But I mean, I think that the wood, the type of construction, the pickups, I think that all adds to what comes out. It's a very unique sound. Even it might boil down to the lacquered fretboard.
They just discontinued that.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they just discontinued it, except on vintage reissues. Vintage reissues will still have that feature, but they on the standard models, I think all the way across the board. I know they started on the basses, and I think now they're doing it on the guitars, where they're leaving the fingerboard unlacquered.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's
and I have a vintage Rick that I refretted a few years ago, and I left the fingerboard unlacquered because I had to play in the fretboard now, and it was just going to be too much trouble to match it up, to match up the clear coat. And so I just left it, and it's fine.
Yeah.
I played, one nice thing about getting to work there is I got to play some, for lack of a better word, celebrity guitars. And, the main 360 Jeklo that Peter Buck from REM uses and has used since 1980 or whenever he bought it, was refretted with jumbo frets and has an unlacquered fingerboard. And it feels amazing. And he uses 13 gauge strings.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It feels like you're playing an acoustic.
Stevie Ray Vaughan wouldn't even want to play that.
Yeah, I mean, and Peter's style is not one where he bends a lot, at least not on that instrument. But yeah, it was instant REM when you plugged it in. He also had some other stuff. He had an Alembic, I think it was an Alembic made bridge, floating bridge. Which looked just like a Rick bridge, but it was made of brass, and a brass nut. Huh. So that was an interesting guitar. That's the one that got stolen in Scandinavia someplace, and they got it back.
Was that the mud flap sticker one?
Yeah, with the mud flap Tammy sticker on it. I that's the guitar I played, and it was nice because I was asked to hold on to that guitar for a couple days. And so, I took it home and took a bunch of pictures of it and went, I've got Peter's guitar, and then shipped it to him. And so when that guitar was stolen backstage at an REM show, I sent all my pictures over to their equipment manager and said, here, if this helps with identifying it or whatever. And whoever stole it asked for a ransom and, got it back. They got the guitar back like 10 days later or something. And so that was fun. But yeah, where were we going with that? Oh, unlacquered or the lacquer on the fingerboards. Yeah, that's a thing about it. And they've also, most of the guitars have the R-shaped trapeze tailpiece where the strings extend way back, so you don't have a great break angle behind the bridge like you do on, say, a Stratocaster.
Yep.
Or a lot of guitars. They don't have a stop tail like most Gibsons. I tell you one thing. You're asking what's a downside. The only this is a downside of any hollow body guitar is that you're never going to sound like Mick Ronson. You're never going to have that Gibson-y, that super martially driven sound with the same intensity. But that's okay, because if you want that sound bad enough, you go get a Les Paul.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things that attracted and it continues to attract me to Ricks is that I'm the guy that has to be different. Why do I want to sound like everybody else? And I guess there are folks that they either want to sound like everybody else, or they're afraid they're not going to get a gig. But I'm not a studio musician. I don't have anyone saying I want you to sound like X. So I'm not as concerned with that.
Well, you brought up. We're kind of heading down the path of some of the particulars, and I think that is where things do get interesting, especially aside from the shape and the sound of the Rick. And so we've got a couple lightning questions regarding the unique aspects of the Rickenbacker guitar. So
guitar or bass?
Well, we'll hit them both. How about that?
All right.
Because the bass is obviously a huge portion of that. Right now, we've been touching on the guitar at a higher level, guitar as in the whole span. For the pickups, we started to get into the toaster pickups, and then there's the high gain. Tony and or Jared, you want to jump in on that?
I think Tony actually knows a little more about the pickups than I do. I mean, I've repaired them in the past, the old original ones.
Yeah,
they're
the quarter-inch
cylinder,
quarter-inch Elnico magnets.
Magnets, yeah.
And so the toasters underneath the toaster stripes and the metal cover, you'll have 6 quarter-inch Alnico magnets with
roughly glued up into the plastic.
Yeah, pretty much. And one of the interesting things, and Curtis Novak told me about this, is that the neck pickups, especially in the late 50s, early 60s, had shorter magnets and the bridge pickups had longer magnets. So the magnets would stick down below the bottom of the coils, which raises the magnetic field for the bridge pickup. The high gains, on the other hand, I think were in response to, the changing times of, people wanting more output and things like that. So they're full ceramic magnet versions.
Actually, a rubberized magnet.
Rubberized magnet. Okay.
It's like a particle board of magnets, as I understand it, is that they, a bunch of pieces of magnet melded with some form of rubber.
Yeah.
Again, I'm probably gonna get my technical stuff wrong, but that's what the high gains are made of.
Very cost effective.
So those, when you look at them, so the toasters were relatively low output, single coil. The high gains are almost double, I guess, if you measure
12K.
them out. And so
12K-ish.
they're a little louder, probably because of the output, a little bit darker. And then, of course, we won't even get into. They also made a humbucker version, and then there are some other oddball pickups. But I think primarily what you'll see on both guitars and basses are, in the neck position, at least on a bass, you either have a toaster or a high gain. The bridge position, they've used several versions, and one of was the horseshoe, which was a direct carryover from the lap steel days. And then they've kind of modified that, and they made the mount look similar to like the horseshoe magnet, but using the high gain pickups. So, in terms of that, I don't know. That's just kind of a real basic primer. Kenny, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, it sounds like, again, we're heading down this rabbit hole, so I can go there. So, a lot of people, if I put a Rick in their hands, the first thing they do with the guitars is go. The first thing they do is say, "What does this little tiny knob do?" So, to give you a quick overview, most Rick guitars, solid body or hollow body, have a volume and tone for each pickup and a 3-way switch. There is an additional pot with a smaller knob on it that is called the blend knob. What the blend knob actually is a secondary volume control for the neck pickup. And what the way it works is, if you've got the pickup selector on the bridge pickup, it's full on bridge pickup all the time. You put it in the middle position, and you can blend the neck pickup in and out with the full on bridge position. And then when you put it on the toggle switch on the neck pickup, again, it acts as a secondary volume control that doesn't short out. It does not close all the way. And that is so you can have sort of a low mid, I won't call it a sweep because it's not an EQ, but it's a volume on that neck pickup. And it's an interesting way to get sort of a softer rhythm sound that you can switch between the bright sound of the bridge pickup. And where this comes into play with Rico sound. Are we ready to talk about Rico sound?
Let's talk Rico sound.
All right.
Rico sound. So Rico sound was developed contrary to what Chris Squire thinks, because he was mistaken and thought that he invented it. but he did not. It is around is starting on Ricks made in the 50s during the late 50s craze of stereo. And we all know about various experiments with stereo in electric guitars from that time frame. And Rickenbacker's contribution to that is Rico sound, which is a second jack on your guitar that if you plug in the standard jack, your guitar operates like normal. If you plug into Rico sound, you have to use a stereo quarter-inch going into it, which would then split off to two different signals. So if you will, a left and a right. If you didn't have such a cable, Rick offered an accessory for many years that was a splitter box. There was a passive splitter box that did the same thing. So you'd run Rico sound out of the special jack, into this little box, which had 2 1/4-inch jacks on it, and then out of those into either 2 channels of the same amp or preferably 2 different amps spread across the room from each other. Now each pickup, if it's a 2-pickup guitar, now each pickup has its own amp.
Wow.
And you can switch between them on the guitar. And
that's cool.
it is cool. And so now the little blend knob still has the same function, but you can kind of turn one of your amps up and down from the guitar that you could with your volume knob as well. But it's sort of like describing color. It's a difficult thing to demonstrate. I mean, I have a guitar sitting here, but of course we're not in stereo, so I can't really demonstrate it. But it's an interesting way to go.
So you can do some stage tricks with that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
you can do some stage tricks. I was using a guitar with Rickenbacker once. I did a gig years ago, just sort of a spontaneous gig with me and a drummer, White Stripes style. And I had a couple kids after the show come up to me and ask me what pedals I was using. And that particular night, I wasn't using any at all.
Nice.
And I said, it's just the guitar split into 2 amps. And they were like, what? Because, I'd use the switch on the guitar to go back and forth from one amp to the other.
Very cool.
Now, add on top of this, a weird feature about Ricks that a lot of people didn't know about for a long time, and that is that they use a treble bleed cap on the traditional 50s, 60s, 70s Ricks. That is a 47,000 microfarad cap wired from the treble pickup into the circuit. Did I say that right? 0.0047.
Yeah,
it's
47,000.
pico. Is it
Right.
picofarads or something like that? Or
It might be picofarad, yes. And as opposed to a 0.047, which is a standard one you'd use for a tone pot. Mm-hmm. This is a 0.0047, and this is a treble bleed. And so the treble pickup, the bridge pickup on most Ricks, including the basses, is super spiky and bright. But it typically cuts the volume by about a 1/4. So when a lot of people figured this out, they would just go in and put a shunt, or they would just cut the thing out and replace it with a wire. Then while I was working there, I was there from 2003 to 2010, and during that time, somebody discovered that they liked the 4001s from the 70s that had this feature, but they also like the 4003s of current day, which bypass this. So now there's a switch. So now there's a push-pull switch on. Yeah. So you can switch between the 2 sounds. And I've rigged that into a couple of my guitars. I have a 12-string sitting here in front of me that it's turned off right now, but I have the push-pull on there that brings the treble bleed cap in and out.
Nice.
so, since we're talking about basses at this point, do you want to talk a little about? The original 4000 bass that came out in the late 50s only had a bridge pickup.
That's right.
And which seems kind of unusual or counterintuitive to what a bass player generally likes to hear, which is kind of that thumpy neck position.
Yes, but think about a Fender Precision bass.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's in the middle.
Nice
there.
one, Tony.
Well, like I said, most people just like to use the bridge position.
Yeah. There's all kinds of people playing like those.
Yeah. Well, even if I'm trying to picture a Fender Jazz bass in my head, because it's got pickups pretty far back on the body as well. Mm-hmm. But I had a Rick bass that I had wired up with just one pickup for a period, and it was still pretty thumpy. It's not as boomy as the traditional Rick neck pickup on a bass, but it's pretty good.
Well, I want to make sure that I got a bunch more stuff for the guitar. I want to save the bass section.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Sure. So here's a couple more questions for the guitar. We were talking about the lacquered neck. Mm-hmm. It's one of the few I think that are kind of really known for that.
Well, rosewood wise, yeah. Other than Fender maple necks.
Yeah, but even the Fender maple necks don't seem as lacquery as like the ones. We've looked at a couple of yours, Tony. I was like, wow, it's like
it's on there pretty.
It's
good.
on there. There's a lot of it.
Yeah.
And how does that affect the sound?
I don't know if it affects the sound so much as the feel. What do you think, Tony?
I think it's feel.
Okay.
I mean, that to me has always been the difference. And I mean, I think isn't
it a lot more work to do that? Or
I think it's a lot more work because after you coat the frets and the fretboard, you have to scrape back.
Right, and then you got to polish it all up and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably.
I wonder what the original purpose of that might have been.
They like
I don't know.
Shiny wood.
Shiny and to protect it on some level. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe so.
Or they didn't
Easier
have tape
to clean
back
the
then.
grind off? I don't know.
It is easier to clean the grind.
Yeah.
It's much easier. You take the
Clean the
strings
grind.
off and you guitar polish on the fingerboard just like the rest of the guitar. It's great.
Well,
Grind
then
comes
speaking
right
of the fingerboard, was the Rick the first ones to use the shark fin style inlay? Do you think?
It predates Grover Jackson's examples by 20 years or more.
Easily,
So
yeah.
it probably was. And they used to extend in the 50s when they first introduced it. The triangle extended all the way to the edges of the fingerboard. And it was only on bound necks. You didn't do it on. They didn't show it on unbound necks. And then I don't know. Maybe they had some complaints at some point about maybe they had some of the inlays fell out or something. I don't know why they did it, but for many years they changed to the kind that does not quite extend all the way to the edges. That it went. You know what I'm talking about, I suppose, where the triangle does not extend all the way to the edges.
A true inlay with a full wood border around it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they were poured in. They were poured in with some sort of
Really?
Yeah. Now I believe that they are they're cut on a laser machine and laid in. And the ones in the 60s, the cherished crushed pearl inlays was I believe that was poured in as well and then scraped off.
Wasn't that fish eyes or something or fish? What? There was some. I seem to remember there was scales or
I can believe fish scales.
It does have something to. I'm not making this up. It did have something to do with Japan. Like it was the
carp
the
scales.
stuff
Those are huge.
Was made. It was imported somehow, and I don't know. I can't remember. I know you can get some material now that is a very close match to that, but you couldn't for a long time.
Wow. That's weird.
But yeah, it's a beautiful look. And now, like I said, now because they're using a stronger material that is an actual thing that's cut out on a laser machine, they now they're inlaid again and go all the way to the edges of the fingerboard. That was also reintroduced when I was working there.
Yeah,
interesting. How about the? We talked briefly about the wood, but I think that is a big deal with these guitars.
Oh yeah.
How about the wood? Just hit that.
Maple, walnut, rosewood.
Maple, walnut, rosewood. Is it in what order? Where are we talking about?
Body and neck are usually laminated, or the necks are usually laminated walnut and maple. The bodies generally are made from maple.
Okay.
And the semi-hollows are scooped out from the back, and a piece is placed behind it, kind of like that's what Ross Meisel did, at Fender with the Fender Tele thin lines.
Mm-hmm.
Same deal. They're scooped out and glued a flat piece glued on the back.
Right out.
Scoop it out.
Okay.
One of the interesting things I think that people often overlook is I think Rickenbacker was one of the early neck through body adopters, especially on their solid body instruments with between the basses and some of the like the 400 series models.
Yeah, the 600s, the 610s, 620, 660 that they make now, those are all neck throughs. Yeah.
you're talking about, Tony, you have mentioned before the F holes in the Ricks.
Right. So what we typically would say, the slash F hole.
Right.
There was also a series,
And that's basically like a very slender curved triangle kind of thing.
It looks like a crescendo mark in music.
or comma, or some people have described it that way.
Yeah.
But there was a period of time in the 60s, and they're known as Rose Morris exports, that they used a standard F-hole. So, what we would typically see on an F-hole instrument. Mm-hmm. And I think that was just the spec that Rose Morris said. Wasn't that right, Kenny?
That's correct. They were, the English still being very traditional in their, we feel our customers. Rose Morris, if anyone who might not know, was a big importer of instruments from America and probably from all parts of the world to England, and they requested that all the ones that came in had the F holes, which is why all those guitars you see Pete Townsend using from that period all have violin F holes.
Okay.
And now the F hole is not exclusive to those, but that's primarily where you see those, and that and the reissues of those instruments. The strangest one you'd see the F hole on all the time that wasn't necessarily an export model is the 310s and 320s, similar to what John Lennon would use. And John Lennon's instrument, his first one, was actually weird because it did not have an F hole, because a lot of those did. And then for some reason the F hole stayed on it, which you'd think that, all through the 70s and stuff, which you'd think it wouldn't. Again, there's so many. The one thing I can be certain about with Rickenbacker stuff is that there's always uncertainty. Just because 90% of the guitars are this doesn't mean that there's not a few examples of that. So there's always going to be exceptions. We're speaking in broad terms about all these things. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there are always. I don't know that they have a lot of Friday afternoon specials. But they're what I mean. Oh, you never heard that term? That's a joke for something was in it. The guys are in a hurry to go home on Friday afternoon, and they make one sloppy because they want to go home. I don't think they have a lot of those, but once in a while you see something that's totally legit, totally stocks from top to bottom, and it's got the wrong tailpiece on it. It just happens. It just happens sometimes.
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, if someone told me I've got a Rick that's got this feature and that feature and it didn't sound right, I'd want to look at it before going, well, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Now you mentioned we've dropped a lot of numbers, a lot of math going on in the Rickenbacker world. Can you explain, either you or Tony, want to explain the numbering system because it's a little confusing for those who don't know all a it.
Well, yeah, I guess it is a little confusing. I mean, what would you say?
I got the basics of it, which is there's a series starts with one number, and then it's either, so for example, a 300 series as an example, or a something 1,000 series. The thousands are all the basses, and the hundreds are all the guitars.
Okay.
The 400 series, just going over this in my head because I didn't prep.
Guitars. We're in the guitar land, right?
The 400 series are all solid body guitars.
Okay.
The 600 series are all solid body guitars. They're with a few exceptions, they're similar, but the classic example of the 600 series is the 12 string that Tom Petty's holding on the Damn the Torpedoes album. That's the classic. That I don't want to get into what that specific guitar was because it's a whole different. We could have a whole podcast about that.
We are going to touch on that.
Well, we can
just
talk
briefly.
But so the 600 series are neck through solid body guitars with a small body with what they call the cresting wave, which is the classic hooky Rick horn on the top. The 300 series are hollow bodies, and they include, basically as the numbers go up, it's a more deluxe model. So a 330 is sort of your baseline of that shape where a 370-12 is going to be a few $100s more on the price list and have a lot more deluxe features, and things like the Ricosound stereo. Still within the 300 series are guitars like the 320, which is the 325 of our broader version was the John Lennon guitar. The 310, which is a plain Jane 2 pickup version of the John Lennon guitar, and so on. And then in bassland, there were something, blah de blah 1000. So the 2000 series was a budget line bass line. Through the 3000 series was a bolt-on neck basses that were around in the 70s. The 4000 series, everybody knows, is the famous where 90% of them are neck through body, and there's a few with set necks, but most of the 4001, 4003, the very limited 4002, those are all the basses. The 4005 is a hollow body bass, so that's kind of a weird anomaly in the numbering scheme. But yeah, they don't really go up higher than that in number. There is a 5000 series, which was a solid body electric mandolin. That's basically it. There was a guitar called a Model 1000. It was a tiny tulip shaped student guitar. And there's a 900 and a 950 that were very similar shape to that too. So, but most of the time with Ricks, you're going to be talking about the 300 series, 600 series, and the 4000 series basses.
Yeah.
And they just didn't, it's not like Fender where you have a Excalibur and all these names for them, or the Thunderbird, there's a few exceptions. I think John Hall wanted to get into that at one point and started giving stuff names, but everybody kind of went back to, hey, is that a 2030 bass or or whatever.
So the only thing I would add to that is depending on the number of pickups. So for instance, a 330 has 2 pickups, a 340 has 3 pickups. A 360 has 2, a 370 has 3, and then usually the 5 on the end indicates a tremolo of some sort.
It's a lot of math, but it is a very good understanding. Now I honestly do have a pretty clear understanding, as dumb as I am, of where, because those numbers get thrown around all over the place. I'm like,
yeah, I mean, as Kenny said, in
300
most people
guitars
are going to be talking about a 330 or a 360.
Yeah. And
when they're talking basses, they're talking about a 4001 or a 4003 because that's mostly what's out there.
Yeah, and when you're in guitar land still, if it's a 12-string model of any of those, it's just /12. So a 330 12-string is called a 330/12. There's old nomenclature that call them 330/6, but that just gets confusing. So but most of the time people don't say the /6 because they only use that in one catalog or something like that. Sometimes I look at this stuff daily on eBay and people, I've got a 2002 330/6.
Yeah.
No, you don't. You've got a 330.
While we're talking about the guitars, a modern day Rick, like that's been produced in the last couple of years or something like that, goes for typically.
What are they listing out now? Around 17, 18?
Yeah, that's where they kind of starting street price at 17, 18, which blows my mind because that's up, 33% of what they were when I was there. I actually haven't kept track. I've been kind of kicking tires to get an additional 12 string so that I can have kind of a daily driver so I don't mess any of my nice ones up. And I'm perplexed at how they're selling for so much. But then again, it's as you guys I'm sure discuss on your podcast all the time. It's not so much what they're going for is what people are asking.
Right. I think a lot of people have really kind of, if you're looking for a 12 string, for instance, a lot of people have really zoned in on the what is it called, a 1994, 1997, the one that has the standard F-hole but the wider nut width.
That's correct. Yeah. So again,
1993 plus because
that's
it has
correct.
3 pickups. Yeah.
So the reason that you have these guitars that have 1990 X, whatever name is that Rose Morris, as we were talking about before, not only said we'd like our guitars to have violin F-holes and fire glow finishes and be very traditional, thank you very much, but we're also going to give them our own modeling or their own model numbers.
Yeah.
So what you'd see in the States, it's a 330 is now a 1997. And so that's that level of detail I don't want to get into because I don't want to confuse your listeners or our host.
No, a vintage one might. What is this? What is sort
That's
of
the thing. I think the vintage market for Rickenbackers, I think they're greatly undervalued.
okay?
I mean,
but what is the year? Okay, so like we know that there are a couple years of like a Les Paul. There's like those are the ones that people tend to go for whatever reason. We won't get into that. Is there a specific years or models that are the most highly sought after by your average collector?
Yeah, well, the 60s is the easy answer, but the thing is, Rick doesn't have a CBS period. They don't have a. I'm going to get it wrong. What's the Norland period? They don't have any of that. They've been Nashville and Bozeman, if you will. Forever. They've been made in the same, if not in the same building, they were made on the same street in Santa Ana, California since the late 50s. And I'm not kidding. The factory where I worked is down the street and around the corner from where the factory and offices were back then. So there's periods that are a little bit less desirable, but it's a feel thing. If I have right in front of me here a 1981 370 12 string, and it feels pretty different than. But even these things are starting to go for even late 80s or early 80s guitars, late 70s guitars from Rick. People are starting to ask north of $3,000 and $4,000 for them, which blows my mind. But again, they're asking that because nobody knows what anything's worth right now.
Right. And it's also a little bit of an anomaly that almost every major brand, and even boutique brands now, higher output boutique brands are doing their signature. More, I guess you could say, handcrafted models and import versions of those same guitars.
Yep.
Did Rickenbacker ever do anything like that? Or has it always been?
Nope.
I can tell you the specific parts. And again, this is off the top of my head, and someone's going to write in and go, he got that wrong. But they briefly used a Boyd vibrato from Japan, and all of their guitars since the mid 80s have used Schaller tuner machines. But other than that, all the parts are sourced locally.
But I think
the chrome plating is done locally, whenever they've had a budget line or a student line, it's still made there. It's still made in California.
And that's, I think, the point that Todd was going at. You look at G&L, they've got the Tribute series. Fender has the Squire series. Gibson has the Epiphone line. Rickenbacker has never had a import, lower priced. I mean,
they've always been built here.
Yes,
that's correct. And I've seen people complain about this. I've seen people complaining about it on message boards and on social media and say, why doesn't Rick do this? And I say to them, when I was a kid, I couldn't afford a Rick either. So you know what I did? I saved my money and bought one.
Yeah.
And I didn't get my first ones until I was out of high school, but those are different times, and guitars didn't cost as much as they do now, and Ricks were not very popular, so you could still find used ones for $200 and stuff like that. So that's that's a point too. But yeah, and at some point we're probably going to talk about the fact that they are very aggressive about shutting down imported, not forgery, that's the wrong word, but copies.
Yeah.
And I think that people, I remember Gibson stepping up to the podium under post Henry ownership and saying something to the effect of, we're coming after all the people that are using our trade dress, and people saying, well, what's gotten into them? And I'm like, man, dude, Rick's been doing this for a long time. And So yeah, anything that uses particular lines of the design, it is illegal to do that. It is illegal to manufacture those. I'm not going to speak for John Hall, but I don't think he's going to be too upset if you go out into your wood shop and you make a replica of a Rick, because you're probably not going to sell it. You're doing it for your own thing. I don't think he's that strict about it, but he's extremely strict about companies out of China that make it, and they even do phony Rick R tailpieces with the R turned sideways, and they look terrible. And there's toaster pickups and stuff, and something like, have you guys seen the new Jackson bass that borrows from a P bass and a Rick bass at the same time?
I don't think I have.
Yeah, it just came out in the last month or two, and I work at a guitar store, and the guys were making fun of me, going, "Hey, look at this new Rick we got," and I'm like, it's an abomination. It's ridiculous. But
the JA2?
It could be.
No, it's the X. No, hang on. I'm almost there. Yeah, it's the X series. It looks
Blow
like
that up.
I'm blowing it up.
Yeah, look at this at home. Yeah, so it's that doesn't really violate any trade dress. It just is kind of Rick flavored.
Oh yeah, I can see. Yeah.
So
it's pretty cool looking. I think it's, anyways.
I don't think it is.
I think it looks like a Jackson and a Fender, and a Rick had a three-way, and this is the baby. Yeah,
that looks like something a smaller builder would do.
Yeah,
I could call it his own.
builder. Yeah,
it does. But yeah, the names of the companies are eluding me, and it wouldn't be cool to talk about it anyway. But yeah, it's a thing, and but yeah, I think it would lessen the brand to have an import line, and I think that John's family, who are slowly taking the wheel, are going to keep the tradition. I sure hope so.
Yeah, that sounds solid. Now, something that we mentioned before, we're going to kind of maybe transition a little bit out of like the specific and the parts and blah, blah, blah. I feel like my connection to the Rick is through Tom Petty's Damn the Torpedoes. Mm-hmm. Now, it is, I guess, rock lore state, and I believe he's even kind of stated himself, like that he might have actually saved Rickenbacker from going under because of that album.
I think Chris Squire's contribution at that point would overshadow that. Well, it's a known fact that Rick was keeping the lights on in the 70s with the 4001 bass, which not just Chris Squire, because he used a slightly different model, but every band in the 70s. If you watch a rerun of Midnight Special or Don Kirshner's rock concert or anything, all genres, it didn't matter if it's a hard rock band or a soft rock band or a yacht rock band, everybody's using a Rick bass, and they were outselling the guitars probably 4-1 or something.
Yeah, well, that's actually a good point, because I was just about to ask, at what point did the Rick bass really become so iconic?
Well, Paul McCartney had one, but I don't think they're that iconic at that point, because first of all, he didn't tour with it. That's technically not true. They had it on stage as a spare, but he didn't use the Rick bass exclusively until Sgt. Pepper, at which point they're just doing the occasional TV spot, and they're not touring. And Rick basses from the 60s are nowhere to be found. I have seen so few of them, and the rest are at Vincent Gallo's house. Do you guys know about that? Vincent's an actor director who collects Rick basses, and he's got rooms full of them.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Vincent Gallo, but I didn't know that he had a penchant for Rick basses.
Oh yeah,
Wild.
He's got many. But that's, I'm sorry, Vincent, if you're listening to this, I'm just kidding. But it is a joke that all those 60s Rick basses are at Vincent Gallo's.
So at some point,
so I'm really thinking it's the 70s. I mean, because you had Geddy Lee, you had Lemmy wasn't till the end of the 70s, really.
Yeah,
That's right.
He was in Windhawk for. Was he playing that in Windhawk?
I think Hawkwind was the band.
Windhawk. Hawkwind. Windhawk was the cover band.
Yeah.
The tribute act.
Tribute band.
Yeah.
But and then McCartney started playing in Wings.
Same bass.
Yeah.
Same bass he played in the Beatles.
Yeah. And then, from that point, Chris Squire with Yes. And I think a lot of people that it was almost positioned.
Well, Paul Simonon played one too for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did, and Morris Gibb and Roger Glover, and there's just the list goes on and on and on of and it still got used in prog rock because of its gang sound, which is funny because Paul McCartney never used that sound. He used the flat wound tone knob off thump. Yeah, I'd listen to you if you watch Wings Over America, rock, whatever it's called, the rock show video of Wings at the height of their powers, and he's playing silly love songs in that thing, and it sounds like a bass trombone. It's it's a great sound. I've been trying to get that sound for 25 years. I can't get it.
Well, I mean, let's face it, the Rick bass has just so much character.
Yeah,
but unlike the standard, like a Fender P bass or any of the other basses you want to throw out there at that time, this is it's a thin body bass. It's not massive. It's not like the big giant heavy anchor, so to speak.
They can be pretty heavy.
Is that the hardware then? I'm just talking about
the
the wood. I mean, it's a pretty thin body guitar comparatively.
I agree that generally speaking, they're a little lighter weight as far as picking it up than certain precision basses from that time. But the nice thing about it, because they are bright, they are made of mostly maple, and they do have the bright high-end sound because of the circuitry and so on. But the nice thing about that is that it takes fuzz really good. So that's why you have Lemmy and Al Cisneros and people like that use them in that way. So they're kind of like a big guitar, and that works really well too. So they're ridiculously diverse.
Now, why does it take fuzz so well again? Can you explain?
Oh, just because it's got a great snappy high end, and so you put that through a Marshall guitar amp like Lemmy did, and I don't know. Someone's going to know better than I will if Lemmy used a lot of pedals. I don't think so. I think he just turned the amp up as far as he could.
Pretty sure.
Have you guys any of you guys ever seen Motorhead?
Not live. I never got to see him live.
No.
I got to John Hall's son Ben, who is the factory manager now at Rickenbacker. He and I think Ben's wife went to see Motorhead at their invitation one time in Orange County, and we had to do a bass swap with him. We gave him a spare, and he gave us one to work on or something like that, because we would do little touch ups on people's instruments. He got us hammered. It was great. But the Motorhead is one of the few shows I'm not a wimp. I like it loud just as much as anybody, but it's one of the few shows I had to go outside.
Yeah.
For the last third of the show, because it just gets you, right in the chest, right in the gut, and it's unrelenting. It's just on and on, and it was wonderful. It was a great experience. And it's funny, I saw Lemmy about 6 months later and said, "Hey, I'm Kenny from Rickenbacker. I met you at this thing, and he just smiled and went, "Okay." No idea who I was.
One of the things that I think, since we're talking about the Rick bass right now, more so than the guitars, is something that we've referenced a lot of times on the show, which is that there's something about some of the older instruments that were made that maybe we don't even notice now. But if you think about the plate, the pick guard and the controls and stuff on a Flying V, or looking at how everything is set up on the Rickenbacker. It's like several different people came up with an idea and they put it all on one guitar. It's not symmetrical. The angles don't work. The curves don't necessarily follow exactly. There's the asymmetric quality to a lot of it is just off enough, and it makes it super interesting visually, I think, anyways.
Yeah. I never thought about that with the Flying V guard, but I see your point. And there's things like that I see on rigs from time to time. And some of it is that the parts are mismatched because they're using up the last year's batch, and we just got the new batch in, but we need to use up these old pieces of plastic first, and whatever. That's what I'm saying. That there's always, with Ricks, there are always some minor inconsistencies like that make them individual.
Yeah. Well, and the giant plate, metal giant thing, pickup guard cover thing on the back of the Rick, and then the tiny little guy on the front on the bass. It's just like it. Everything is just wonky, and it's from the giant horn with a little extra bit at the end. I don't know. It's just it's funny because I think a lot of builders now. We've referenced this before. I'm sorry if we're covering, ground for those who've been listening a long time, but it's when you have one singular person designing everything on it, it is very difficult to stray away from symmetry. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the magic of some of these older styled instruments that may have had a few more hands in it than a lot of guitars that are being made currently.
Yeah, I think that's
just a theory. It's just a theory. It's not a fact. Okay, got a couple more questions here. Let's see. We mentioned the Beatles. Obviously, they're a huge part of this story. How did they get involved with the Beatles?
The John Lennon walked into a guitar shop in Hamburg, Germany, when they were a bar band. Everybody knows about that. Mm-hmm. And they wanted American guitars. George Harrison had a famous story about how he was moments away from buying a Stratocaster in Liverpool once, and a guy with, who had the cash on him from Rory Storm and the Hurricanes, I don't remember, got the guitar first. And how he was always like, I wish I'd have gotten it, because he had wanted an American guitar, because they had this is predating McCartney on the Hofner. This is they didn't have good instruments yet, and so John Lennon had seen the late great Toots Thielman's playing a Rickenbacker on the cover of a George Shearing Quintet album, and so he recognized the shape and got acquainted with the name. They probably didn't have a lot of literature around about but he just probably remembered it, and then went into a store in Hamburg, and they had the guitar that he bought, and they said, "Oh, that's that brand." And John Lennon was not a big guy. He says, the Beatles are little skinny guys, and he it just suited him, and he was, he wasn't a Waylon Clapton-esque player. He was a strummer and knew all the fancy jazz chords and broken chords from playing plectrum banjo and stuff. Not plectrum banjo, but playing banjo, and got it. And I think I read somewhere that George Harrison was like, he might have paid it off. He got it on he got it on hire purchase, which is like layaway. And he's like, I'm not sure if he paid it off or not, but anyway, he got it and just loved it. And that's the little blonde 325 with the Kaufman vibrato that everybody knows about. And then later George got the black Gretsch Duojet. And I think that between wanting to have matching guitars because they thought it was cool, and also he had probably dropped it a few times and scratched it up. Yeah. So he got his guitar refinished in black, and it was apparently a pretty crap job, like done with a paintbrush or whatever.
Probably, yeah.
Anyway, so that was how he got started, and then somebody hipped. Oh, and then George came over to America about 6 months before the Ed Sullivan show. Maybe not 6 months, but a few months before the Ed Sullivan show. and he bought a 425 that was also no, he had that guitar painted black as well.
Yeah, it was refinished.
It was refinished, and so somebody found an early shot of them playing on Thank You Lucky Stars or one of those British TV shows of the two guys playing at Rick's, and somebody hipped FC Hall and said, "You got to get an audience with these guys because they're going to be the next big thing, and you need to get on this." And somehow, miraculously, they got the ear of Brian Epstein, and a famous story about them meeting in New York. The first part everybody knows, which is that Mr. Hall set up a hotel, a large hotel suite with their guitars, like a miniature NAMM show, and the Beatles came in to check out all the stuff, and they had one of the early 12 strings, the second one they had made, and which wound up being the Hard Day's Night 12 string. I'm doing the condensed version of the story because everybody's got the books and everybody knows all this stuff. And so, but George wasn't there because he's in the hospital. So they took the guitar over to the hospital, the 12 string, and let him play it. And he said, "Yes, I love it. I want it." And off they went. But here's the part that not a lot of people know is that, so FC Hall, Francis Hall was there, of course, and said, he had some assistant with him, a flunky of some kind. He said he gave him a couple bucks and said, "Go down to the Five and Dime and get the new Beatles album because my son John is, he's 14. He'd like an autographed album by these guys." And so the kid said, "Okay," and went down and bought a brand new copy of Meet the Beatles, which had just come out that month or something. So they bring it back to the room. And they get through with their formalities and they're looking at guitars and blah, blah, blah. And he says, "Oh yeah, would you fellas mind signing this?" And they go, "Sure, we'd be happy to." And he hands them the record and they go, "What's that?" They said, "Well, that's your new album." And they look at it, the front of it and the back of it. They had never seen a copy of Meet the Beatles.
Oh, wow.
Because it's an American only release and they had just gotten there like the day before. So they signed it. They started to sign it on the back. Like two of them signed it on the back and said, no, we need to sign it on the front. So they signed on their faces on the front or whatever. And FC Hall took that record home and gave it to his son, John, who still has it.
Wow.
And
worth a fortune.
He took it on Antiques Roadshow about 10 years ago. And I'll let you go on YouTube and find the clip.
Wow.
So that's, but isn't that funny how they're like, "Oh, the Beatles is this new group. My son would like an autographed record from them. That would be nice."
Yeah. What a fine gentleman.
Indeed.
Wow.
Hey, so we got two more questions that I think are worth asking here. These are all shapes and models and features that have largely been unchanged for quite some time. Mm-hmm. Yeah?
I'd say.
Yeah.
Do you
largely.
think that will there be any new developments? They're gonna keep Tony's shaking his head like, "No,
I'll tell you what,
dumb Todd."
Well, here's the thing is that every so often they come up with a new design. And if it's not a direct, so the example that Tony came up with a little bit ago is the 1993 Plus, which is 1993 was a hollow body 12 string double bound, but they call it the Plus because the neck has got a 1 3/4 nut width and wider than your typical Rick nut width, which I can't remember what the typical one is, but it's smaller than 1 3/4. And that was and remains fairly successful. Whenever Rick has tried to come up with something that is a departure, a few diehards pick them up. And then they get phased out after a few years because they don't sell as well as a 330 or a 360 or a 4003. Now there are constant developments in production. There are constant improvements. There are constant changes in like how can we make a better, stronger finish? How can we, let's do things like take the finish off the fingerboard, see how that goes. Let's upgrade the pots from this value to that value, whatever. There are changes that way, but I think someone that wants a Rick walks into the store and says, "I'd like a Rick, please."
That's fair.
Yeah. But they do it. They came up with the whole 650 series in the 90s, and they finally got phased out about 5-10 years ago. They had a solid body series in the 80s that had bolt-on necks that was predated by another bunch of bolt-on neck solid bodies in the 70s. You had the 430 and so on. Not the 450. But anyway, you had some in the 70s and a matching bass series, the 3000 series, and a few people are sentimental about them, but they kind of went away. And then, like I say, in the 80s, they had these ones that had these cool pickups that were like funky passive humbucker things and solid body with bolt-on necks. And anyone who plays one goes, "Hey, this is pretty cool," but they're not as classic Rickenbacker.
Yeah.
So I guess classic is probably the word I'm looking for. Not retro so much as classic.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of all these models and just being aware of what's out there, I think final question, unless Tony stops me after this and wants to add something. What should people who maybe are just getting into this, largely as a result of this show, I would imagine.
Of course, yeah.
What should people either look for or be wary in buying a used one? Because I think most of our audience sort of revels in the used market.
Mm-hmm. I want to chew on that for a minute. Tony, do you have any suggestions about that?
Well, I think, obviously if you're getting a vintage piece, you'll want to make sure that the parts are of the same era. In other words, the pickups haven't been replaced, the tuning machines haven't been replaced.
If it's too good to be true,
it probably is.
It probably is.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I've believed for the longest time that some of the newer models, and I'm talking things post 1985 and up, I think are some of the best made Rickenbackers. So I don't think you can go wrong with a newer model. Even buying something that's 10, 15 years old, it's going to be a decent instrument.
Yeah. Well, and they're still like comparably priced. It's hard that they just kind of ones and used ones are virtually. I mean, they're right in the same ballpark.
Well, part of it is there was a period of time where there was a shortage, where dealers were waiting a year and a half, maybe longer, to get new models in. So the used market for Rickenbackers, sorry. I reverted.
Oh, Tony.
I reverted.
Tony.
But there was that period of time. So I mean, I think that's what kind of drives the price. But I still feel, even with, I know the newest models, the 21s, and I mean, I'm sure the 22s might be $100 more or whatever. I still think they're one of the best value guitars, American-made instruments, because there's nothing else like them. And if that's the look and the sound that you're going for, that's the only place you're going to get it.
Yeah. Well, the joke I make is whenever I meet someone who is either anti-Rick or just shrugs their shoulders and goes, it's not really for me. It's not my job to convince them. Even when I worked there, it was never my job to convince them that it was the guitar for them. I shrugged and said, "Oh, more for me." But, I think, so somebody like the Billy Joe Armstrong example, he has a Jekyll 360. He's customized it where he took all the knobs off the pick guard and has I bet Tony, you probably made the guard for him, where it's just got one volume knob with no toggle switch or anything. But that is, as far as I know, that's the only modification he made to the thing, and it still sounds like Green Day. But having said that, don't go, if you're looking at getting a Rick, don't think that you're going to be able to play metal on a hollow body.
Right.
Maybe you can, I can't. But but because you're just going to run into feedback problems and things like that. So be realistic about those, but that's just guitar buying 101. But yeah, as far as whether they're a good value or not, yeah, they're still great when you consider that an ES335 is going, what's street price on an ES335 new right now? $6,000 or something?
I think that whole line has just shot up.
Yeah. So, and that's the echelon of where Rick is quality wise, not with Epiphones, not with an Epiphone Dot or anything like that, but that are made overseas, but the ones that are made in America, are going to, when you compare where Ricks are selling now with that, they are a great bang for the buck.
And I think even vintage ones. I mean, even though they might be, people are asking $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 for some of the earliest ones. They're still, when you compare that to what a lot of Gibsons are going for or a lot of Fenders, I mean, I think I said earlier that I think the vintage market for Rickenbackers is they're generally undervalued by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not going to be as popular. They're never going to be as popular as a late 50s burst or or whatever. That's always going to take.
We just have to get Bonamassa to play them, and then everybody will buy them.
Hey man, so are you guys familiar with the Rick Light Show guitars?
Yes.
Okay, so I was in Indianapolis a couple of years ago, and there's a great little mom and pop shop there called Arthur's Music, and they had just bought a big collection of Ricks and other similar Beatle-ish guitars and a couple of cool Vox amps and stuff from a collector. And I just happened to be coming to town, and I saw that they had gotten this stuff, so I was like, I'm going to go by and check it out. And they had a Rick Light Show, and I have one too, so I wanted to compare it. I didn't plug it in and to look at the lights and stuff. I just wanted to play it because they've got extraordinarily tiny necks. And so I went and played it. And about 2 weeks later, Bonamassa's got one on his YouTube channel. It's the same guitar. He buys lots of guitars from Arthur's, and it was that guitar.
Man. Well, this has been enlightening to say the least.
I think we just scratched the surface.
I mean, and honestly, I want one of these now. I actually Now, Tony is going to be kind enough and let me try out his 330.
Tony, do you have any 12 strings?
Yeah, I've got the 360 V64.
Okay. Yeah. So the 12 strings are a whole nother topic because there's so much about them that sets them apart from every other guitar on the planet. The fact that they've got a short headstock with classical style tuners and standard style tuners just to cut down on the length of the headstock, which is genius. Thank you, Dick Burke, who was the factory manager for many years. Dick is one of the other unsung heroes of Rick. He was there for ever and ever and came up with a lot of neat ideas like that. Also, I'm not sure whose idea it was. It might have been FC Hall for the
thicker string.
Not the thicker string up top. So everybody knows when you play a standard 12-string acoustic or electric, you strum a chord. The first note you hit is the octave string of the E. Well, Ricks are flipped the other way around. So the first note you hit is the root. And I've got mine right here. So I'll just go and like that. And so the nice thing about that, again, you can play an A power chord with one finger. Because of the way that they're because of the way they're set up, it's just all those little ingredients that add up to make the 12-string great. I would play in my band. I would play 12-string all the time, except that I need to do solos with bending notes sometimes, which is why I got a double neck.
That's an entirely other story too.
Oh, dude, yeah, it's I'm very happy. I don't have that many guitars compared to some friends of mine, anyway, and but I'm very happy that everyone has a cool story. And there's actually the guitar I'm playing right now that I have in front of me. There's there's a fella named John McNicholas here in Atlanta that did a sort of a photojournal series on people's favorite instruments, and it's called That One Guitar. And it's not restricted to guitars. He went with people that, you know, their favorite musical instrument. So it could have been a clarinet or whatever, a favorite drum or whatever. And I was lucky enough that he did one on me and this 12 string I have here, which I got for my 18th birthday. So
that's cool.
Anyway, but yeah, if you care enough, folks, you can go find that online somewhere. But because it's cool. If you guys haven't done this yet, I'm sure you will do a thing about what's your craziest favorite guitar story, because they've all got, you know, if you've been at this long enough and you get to be a certain age, all your instruments have a story or 2 or 3 or 10 built into them. You know, and so that's I'm happy about that with the guitars I have.
Fantastic. Well, Kenny, thank you so much for lending so much. Usually Tony's the one with the air, and we appreciate you sharing so much of it to get this show so heavily laden with great details and everything.
Thank you so much for asking me, Tony. Tony is a dear friend and has been for many years, and has. We've, we haven't gotten to see each other very much lately, so I hope we can rectify that at some point.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
You guys have another moment to share right now, because we're going to play a little game called Would You Rather? This week's Would You Rather. Yeah, we're going to play Would You Rather. This week's Would You Rather. You're walking down the street, and then you go to the
Who's
studio.
this from?
And at the end of the thing, and you're walking down the street and you go into the studio, and then you come out of the studio.
Out.
That's right. And a man with a briefcase approaches you. He says that a well-known multimillionaire wants you to have your band to play a private party for $5,000.
$5,000.
That's a lot of money. You try to act cool, but your eyes are spinning like a slot machine that's about to pay out. But the man says, we will pay you double if everybody in the band wears a tight pink tutu. just like the one that the old Cheech wore in the Battle of Bands on Up in Smoke. Photos of your band will be plastered all over his very popular social media, too.
My mama talking to me, trying to tell me how to live.
Yeah.
So, do you take the $5,000 to play the gig in normal clothes and get zero promotion? Or do you take the $10,000 to play in a ridiculous and very revealing outfit for this rich weirdo to laugh at and spread all over the interwebs?
Oh, man. Who's this from?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is from Daniel, and he is from Wollongong, Australia.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very cool.
Wollongong, Wollongong.
Yeah. Well, and a lovely how do you do to all of our fans in Australia.
G'day.
Yeah.
Mate.
You call that a knife?
Yeah. Wow. You guys really. I was trying not to go.
Out.
Yeah.
You pulled her out.
I was really trying to stay classy. You know.
Hey, g'day is a perfectly acceptable way to greet an Aussie.
I suppose it is.
On
Yeah.
the Barbie.
As we keep going with that.
How's your mother?
Sorry about all the.
How's your father?
All the Australian stuff. Okay. So.
Tanisha
Duty Pants.
5,000. You just play in your street clothes.
What you're wearing now?
What I'm wearing now.
Perfectly acceptable clothing.
Okay, perfect.
What if you're already wearing a tutu?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Excellent.
I think it makes the answer a little
Yes,
easier.
I think so.
And $10,000 if the whole band are you wearing things other than the tutu?
It doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, just the tutu, and that's
Just the tutu. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't think any undergarments.
I tell you what, I'll pay you $20 not to see Tony in a tutu.
All right. So
Tony, go ahead. We're gonna make our rounds.
All right.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna go for it. I'm going for the $10,000 and the tutu.
Okay. Sounds
I
good.
mean, yeah, I've worn more ridiculous things than a tutu.
All right.
Playing
Kenny, how
live.
about yourself?
And he's gotten paid less than that for
Much. $50.
I also go for it. There's no there's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about.
Yeah.
I would $10,000, and it's I think it was our friend John Lennon who said, "I'll wear a bloody balloon if I get paid." So so 2-2 it is.
Okay, Jared.
Yeah.
Oh boy, everybody, cover your eyes.
I could do the 2-2.
You might need a 3-3.
In the least,
Jared?
I'm definitely wearing the 2-2. I don't care how revealing it is because I'm old and I'm fat and nobody wants to see it anyway.
Okay. So that's well. I'm definitely not going to do that. Sorry, I'm on the island this time. You know how I am about my band's image.
Well, you
and all
still
that
think
stuff.
you're going to be rich and famous?
No,
someday.
I don't.
No.
Yeah. So that was super fun. Thank you so much for sending that particular Would You Rather
That
in.
was really good.
That was really, really good. Thank you, Daniel. Much obliged. We need to thank a few people.
Yes, Todd.
And then we're going to say goodbye to everybody. And let's start with thanking the few people first.
I'm going to thank a few people,
Let's do it.
because at this point of the show, Todd, there's a special group of people that we love to thank. These are our executive producers. Now, Kenny's probably wondering, what's an executive producer? And more importantly, how could he become one? Well, you just go over to patreon.com/The Guitar Knobs. Check out a couple different levels in which you can participate. Become a sponsor of this very podcast. Each level comes with a great bevy of thank you gifts, including things like T-shirts and barefoot buttons and flashlights and keychains and picks and stickers and all the good stuff. But as an executive producer, there's one thing more, Jared.
That's right. You get to have your name read on the
Your
thing.
name read on the thing. That's what I'm going to do right now. So special thanks to these executive producers. Big breath in. Big breath out. Tom Barazin.
Yeah.
Darren Gregory. Doug Christ. Ken Sayers. Michael Senchuk. Stefan Lamb. Anthony Lathrop. John Englund. John Esterle. Justin Jones. James White. Matt Hart. Bill Gola Guitars. Richard Kendall. Tig Harmon. John Jackson. Jason Roush. Gary Cooper. Mark Garton. Elad Mizrahi. Micah D, Trevor Gunberg, Rick Calhoun, Anthony Gimolero, John Halverson, and Drew Lopez.
Hey, but wait, isn't there more?
Oh, there's definitely more.
More? Get your name read on the thing.
Well,
Let's
most
do it.
importantly, we have a special group of executive producers.
Oh, yeah.
We call them our Grand Poobahs.
That's right.
These folks get to wear a fez upon their heads while listening to the podcast.
Orange fezzes.
Orange fezzes.
Nice.
They get all kinds of great stuff.
Yep.
So special thanks to these Grand Poobahs. Jonathan Jerusik, Corey Nigro, David Kaminga, Science of Sound, Cody Foster, Sean S. Tommy Manasco, Adam Johnson, Steve Keys, Tim Nowak, Tyler Rhines, James Pennington, LSJ Music Company, John Williams, Johnny Morales, Mel Sanders, Bob Crouch, Sam Jett, Michio Murakishi, Martin Cliff, Hex Matos, Michael Van Zant, Andrew DeHaan, Brian Robinson, and John Daly.
Yeah, all right.
We love you.
We certainly do. Thank you all so much for chipping in and your constant support for us. We really, truly do appreciate it. Kenny, where could people maybe find you on the internet and get into what you're doing out there?
I've got a couple places. I'm on reverbnation.com. So it's reverbnation.com/Kenny Howes. My last name is Howes. Howes. I have a page on Facebook, facebook.com/Kenny Howes fan page. I am also on all the usual places like Bandcamp and CD Baby and such wherever you purchase music. Some of my stuff is on Spotify. I'm working to get all of it on there. And I am a singer-songwriter in the power pop genre who has, how many albums do I have? 8. And so I've got
Those are all self-named, the band. Your
so
music?
it's under my name, Kenny Howes.
Okay.
And so yes, you can find all that stuff wherever you like to purchase music, and that's where I am. Drop me a line, say hi, show me pictures of your guitars, and we'll talk some more about it.
Cool. Tony?
Nice.
I can. By the way, I'll play you out when we're done. I've got a thing I can play for the end of the podcast.
Sounds
So,
good. Sounds good.
We don't have
Carry
to pay royalties or anything on that, do we?
Only to me.
Tony.
Why don't you head over to pickguardian.com, check out some of the things that I have available for sale. Lots of Rickenbacker stuffs are available for sale. I always say, though, this stuff can be custom, so you might want to send a tracing. There's some series out there, and I'll let you know if you order something and I need a tracing or need you to send the guard.
Yeah.
But by and large, what I do is custom. Shoot me an email. Let me know what you need. I might even have some good ideas to make your special project even more special.
Yep. All the cool materials.
I have personally sent Tony my own personal pick guards at least half a dozen times, and they always come back in better shape.
Well, that's what I hope. Even though they do go through the post office.
Yeah.
That's right.
Jared, how about yourself? Where can people find you?
Get a hold of me on the Guitar Knob social media messaging things, and I will have a future Instagram thing too.
I've been hearing about
Yes.
this future thing for now the last 3 months. What gives?
If we keep saying it's going to happen, it'll happen at some point.
Yeah.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Just remind me one day, and I'll make it.
Yeah,
Nice.
Well, we do every week. But anyways, so you can drop me a line, Todd at theguitarknobs.com, and also at Guitar Knobs on Instagram. We would love to hear your stories. We'd love for you to share your four on the floors and give us some would you rathers, people. That last one from Daniel was spectacular.
Top that.
Woo-wee.
That's good.
So hopefully we all know a little bit more and appreciate a whole lot more the world of Rickenbacker guitars.
Or as they say in England, appreciate.
Appreciate. Yes. Appreciation.
Who knew?
If he does hear this, I'd like to say hi to my old boss John Hall and the owner of Rickenbacker, and hope all is well and hope to see you and yours soon.
Excellent. Hey, everybody, have a fantastic guitar week. And subscribe!
There, you can fade that out.
I love it.
Perfect. Perfect.
I've been saving it.
Yeah, well, you dislodged the Polska kielbasa that's been up there since you were 16.
Oh, that's what that was. Oh, it still tastes good.
Whoo, doggies, we're going to have a good one tonight.
And action. I was made for loving you, baby.
Kenny, if you hear this,
Yes.
that's when I have to cut Tony off and make an edit. All right. Occasionally, these clowns and then myself
We
will
screw it
mess
up.
it up. Anyhow,
Oh yeah.
Oh, dear God. I'm
Tony didn't take his Centrum today.
I guess not.
No, don't do it, Jared.
Too late. You did it.
Damn it.
We're cutting this part out, right?
Yeah, we're cutting this part out.
Hang on.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, Four on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.